Folks, we got a real winner today. Folks, new developments and shocking updates in regard to the Railroad Workers Union strike and their fight against the Democrats in the Biden administration, Congress, Senate, railroad company owners, Warren Buffett, the like, to get their paid sick time, to get the small little piece, glimmer of hope to improve their quality of life in these contract negotiations that were ultimately taken away from them as their legs were cut out from under them and they were stabbed in the back by President Biden with this law signing and making it illegal for workers to strike. This is crazy. Investors pressure railroads to add sick time for workers. And it says here that major freight railroads are facing pressure to add sick days for their workers from a new front. Now, this is that good news I was telling you about, guys. Pay attention. Check this out. An influential investment group says some of its members are now pushing the measure that Congress declined to as part of the contracts they imposed last week to avert a potentially devastating nationwide rail strike. The Interfaith Center on Corporate Responsibility said Monday that two investment managers it works with to help promote social change at companies had filed proposals at Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern railroads to give shareholders a vote on whether rail workers should get paid sick leave. Now, similar proposals are likely to be filed at CSX and at BNSF's parent company of Berkshire Hathaway, one of Warren Buffett's many profitable business ventures and ownership interests, cash flow producing assets in his investment portfolio, but they haven't been submitted yet. The ICCR represents 300 members with over $4 trillion in assets. The lack of paid sick time in the industry became a major sticking point this fall in contract talks between the railroads and their 12 unions. Four of those unions rejected 5-year deals that included 24% raises and $5,000 in bonuses because of their concerns about sick leave, demanding schedules, and other quality of life concerns. President Joe Biden signed a bill Friday that forces railroad workers to accept those deals that were negotiated back in September and prohibits them from going on strike. A separate bill that would have required sick time failed in the Senate. Meanwhile, according to Jacobin, railroad workers' lives revolve entirely around their jobs. Now, hopefully we can see some form of possible solution and resolution and ongoing negotiations to help these railroad workers achieve the sick time that they so desperately need and, in my opinion, deserve. I'll keep an eye on that and make sure to update you guys as any additional information is revealed and shared about this particular ongoing effort, now being backed by some very strong, very powerful shareholders. Remember, folks, I told you these companies care about the shareholders, so making sure the shareholders are happy is going to be a huge, huge concern for folks like Warren Buffett. So, railroad workers' lives revolve entirely around their jobs, and this is part of the problem, folks. Unable to actually have any form of quality of life or even have the ability to take time off to go to the doctor or the dentist or anything like that without suffering negative consequences at work, on the job, potentially risking their employment and, most importantly, their retirement plans. Now, it says here, a story told that I want to share with you by Mr. Rob Kufalk. It says, our life only functions around the railroad. Folks, if you are part of the Railroad Workers Union or know anybody or previously worked for it, retired from it, or you know, comment down below. Let us know, what is it like? Does your life really only function around the railroad? A longtime conductor for BNSF Railway, Kufalk is virtually always on call, so he says. He must be ready to get to work within 90 minutes from when the company says they need him, which can happen anytime, day or night. And it says here that with the industry shedding jobs to cut costs as part of its so-called precision scheduling railroading strategy, the situation, he said, has become unbearable since BNSF implemented a new points-based attendance policy, under which employees can be disciplined or fired for missing a call to come into work or taking an unplanned day off. They want us available for duty 95% of the time now, 24/7, 365, he said. I try to plan for doctor's appointments and other things that it's almost impossible. Sometimes you just have to lay off and take the hit on the points. Through more than 3 years of contract negotiations, the railroads flatly refused to budge and give workers any paid sick days. The companies knew they didn't really have to negotiate because politicians in Washington wouldn't risk allowing rail workers to strike and slow shipments, especially now during the holiday season, at an estimated cost to the economy of $2 billion per day. Last week, at Biden's urging, Congress passed a law to block a strike and impose the administration's labor deal over workers' objections. A measure offered by progressives to add 7 sick days to the deal won some Republican support, but still failed in the corporate-controlled Senate. The matter strikes at the systematic devaluing of the people who literally keep the country rolling, who have seen their benefits deteriorate and their schedules get far more extreme as railroad companies have decimated their workforce to juice corporate profits and executive payouts. Take the time, Kufalk says. He has this wish for lawmakers. Take the time. Take the time to learn more about the railroad lifestyle in order to balance what's best for businesses and the economy. With the need of railroad workers or rail workers who sacrifice to make the economy run, if lawmakers spent some time working on the railroads, they'd be more than happy to go back home to Congress. But Kufalk, who said he's voted to strike several times throughout the contract negotiation process, he said that he felt betrayed by those who he helped put in power. Biden lost a big chance to set himself apart from the Republicans, he said. That's a big failure on his part. Kufalk, a former law enforcement officer and dairy farmer before, now he works as a conductor out of Wisconsin. It says here that we haul anything and everything, he said, intermodal, mixed freight, and commodities, military trains, vehicle trains, you name it. If it's something that goes on a rail car, at some point or another, I've probably been on a train with it. If the trains break in two or goes into an emergency because an air hose separates or anything like that, I'm responsible for putting it back together. His duties include overseeing train makeup and compliance and placement of cars to ensure weight is distributed properly, followed by long periods of waiting around. After shifts that last up to 12 hours, Kufalk said he's either brought back to his home terminal or to a motel where he then takes a 10.5-hour rest period. The rest periods often occur and end at odd times, which make it difficult to find food. So Kufalk usually travels with a large insulated lunch container and enough food to get through a trip. The demands on Kufalk's time and the unpredictable nature of his schedule means he and wife Mona lead separate lives. His wife said, "I love him so much and I want to do things with him, but ultimately we can't. We don't have a life where we have nights out with friends. We can't join a bowling league. There are so many things we just can't do. Our grandsons play hockey, and we've not been able to go to a hockey game for our grandsons yet. And I've never complained about the pay," is what Kufalk says. "When I first started out, we had excellent health insurance. We didn't have to pay any monthly subsidies for it or anything." He noted that back in 2008, he only had to pay $20 after getting carpal tunnel surgery done on both wrists, adding, "It's been downhill from there." Kufalk now says that while a surgery ends up costing around $4,000 to $5,000 out of pocket, he said that the railroad companies used to show more gratitude to their workers and regularly providing hot meals, particularly on holidays, and giving them gift cards that they could use at the BNSF store. All that stuff's gone by the wayside, he said. Last year, I was down in Galesburg, Illinois for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve. And there was nothing at the hotel saying, come to the depot, we have food for you here. That was how much gratification there was to show us thanks for working on the holidays. The CEOs need to remember that if it wasn't for us out there humping the trains down the rails, they wouldn't be having their multi-million-dollar salaries. Asked about Warren Buffett, the billionaire chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, which owns BNSF, Kufalk didn't hold back. I think our dear Uncle Warren is nothing but a money-grubbing pig. Given BNSF's billions in annual profits, he argued, Buffett could say, I want all my employees to have paid 100% health insurance and a very handsome 401k and retirement pension. And I want it all paid for, and it wouldn't cost him a dime. He would have the happiest employees ever and the most productive. And he would reap more benefits, but he'll never do that. Instead, he's more worried about where his next money's coming from, almost like Scrooge McDuck. Now, across the railroad industry, companies have made devaluing labor and reducing their workforce a core part of their business model in order to maximize profits and enrich shareholders. We have a lot of trains now that are right around that top 10,000 foot length, Kufalk said, explaining that precision scheduled railroading effectively means workers doing more with less. Over the past 6 years, large U.S. freight rail companies have cut their workforce by nearly 30%. The substantially smaller workforce has meant less maintenance and dirtier cars. We are running with more cracked windshields, heaters that aren't necessarily working right. We're having more breakdowns than what we used to have, is what he said. It also means slower shipments. On weekends now, we are tying trains down on the main line because there's not enough crews to take to the next destination. And that exacerbates the problem because then they have to call a bunch of crews right away when they're rested to go and get these trains moving again. It just makes the crew shortage even worse. The drive to reduce worker numbers has culminated in onerous attendance policies like the new points-based system from BNSF, which requires workers to be available around the clock if and when management needs them. Under the policy, workers start there with 30 points and are docked points if they fail to respond to a call from management or if they need to take an unscheduled day off, which is the huge push for paid sick leave. Losing too many points can mean disciplinary action or worse, being fired. The BNSF policy has led to mass resignations, with the situation getting so bad that the company has been offering $10,000 bonuses to employees to defer their retirements for 6 months. The railroads are trying to hire people, but they can't keep the people they're hiring, he said. Kufalk was scheduled to retire in December, yet he agreed to take a bonus and will work now through April of next year. Railroad companies dragged out negotiations over a new contract with unions for more than 3 years, refusing to offer workers any paid sick time, even amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Employees currently have little choice but to work while sick, often in close confined quarters. And the railroads have argued in the press that workers have ample vacation time despite not having paid sick days. Kufalk, meanwhile, noted that in his 17th year with BNSF, he currently has 4 weeks of vacation, a generous amount by American standards. But the company determines when he can use most of this time off. As a result, it's still difficult to schedule visits to the doctor or dentist. The lack of paid sick time has been a key sticking point in negotiations between unions and the railroads. And in the recent contract negotiations, unions initially pushed the railroads to grant workers as many as 15 sick days, and ultimately demanded as few as 4. The companies held firm, refusing to pay any sick time at all. Under the terms of the deal negotiated between Biden's emergency board, railroad companies, and unions, workers are set to get a single paid sick day a year. Just one. At Biden's urging, Congress passed legislation last week to impose his deal over the objections of workers who were ready to go on strike. The Senate failed to pass an amendment offered by Sanders and backed by Warren that would have given railroad workers 7 paid sick days. Now, they will only get 1. Next year, Kufalk will retire with an extra bonus. He and Mona are planning to sell their house and move somewhere on the water. For the moment, he's nearly always on call, but he's not missing any more important days with his family. Kufalk said he refused to go to work this Thanksgiving and use his last remaining vacation day for the year. I'm not going to be working Christmas either. I'll take a hit on the points. I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. This weekend, Mona said Kufalk will take a point deduction so the family can, for the first time, watch their grandkids play in a hockey tournament. And Kufalk closes with, what are they going to do? Fire him? Well, I'm very pleased to hear that Kufalk has taken this stance in this position, has put his foot down, while also capitalizing on the additional monetary financial benefit of extending his tenure to April of next year. Hopefully they don't try to do anything to retaliate against him and his pending retirement with this extended bonus period. I'm sure we'll probably hear a follow-up from Kufalk come spring of 2023. But folks, this is what the railroad workers are up against. This is a crazy, crazy time. And, we have the Biden administration pushing back on them with this, overriding of their rights as union workers. This is crazy, but we do see that there is some support coming in from the shareholders that could possibly spell change and improvements for those who I think are ultimately getting shafted on this deal. Time will tell. I will continue to monitor and bring you guys updates in the future. Thank you for watching. You guys take care. Be safe, and I will see you on the next one.